So this is my grandmother's old sewing machine, which I found in storage, and it's a really cool looking sewing machine. It looks like it's from like the space age. There's a guarantee here from it. Maybe that will tell me when it was bought. January 1960. Whether it still works is the big question. Okay. Something just moved. Okay, I'm disappointed because I just had to go and reset the fuse box in the other end of the barn because when I put this on, it tripped the electricity. What's interesting is it did work for a second, which might mean that it can still work, but obviously there's something that needs checking and fixing. So I guess I can't use this. It's such a shame. I love the way it looks. I would love to get this working and use it as my sewing machine, especially because my old plastic sewing machine has quite a few issues and I really need a new one. But rather than buy a new one that will probably be mostly made of plastic, because they are these days, I would love to get one of these older ones working and use that. But I don't know. It's not something I think I can fix by myself. I might have to find someone who can help me with that. It may be a bit optimistic to think I'm going to get this sewing machine working. I would like to, but when I think about it, if it was made at the very latest in 1960, that makes it 65 years old. So the other week I got this top in a vintage shop and I really like it. I think it's really old. I can tell because I think it's hand stitched, and I've seen things like this before in shops, but they very rarely fit anybody of today's size because just everyone was so tiny in those days. But this one actually fits me quite well. I really like it. It's a little bit uncomfortably tight around the bottom here, so I'm thinking I might try and adjust it, take out some of these gathers, but I do really like it. I've just noticed that here it has AB on the bottom on the inside, which I guess must have been the initials of the person who owned it. The other thing is that I think this ribbon that's in here at the moment is just a modern like polyester ribbon, so I'd quite like to change that for something that's a bit nicer. I know I've got some silk ribbons in here somewhere. That might not be long enough, but it's nice. One of the hardest things about these really old tops is that they are usually made out of a very fine white cotton. You just can't seem to buy this material anymore. Even like thin, fine cottons today just don't have quite the same quality about them. So I think the closest thing I'm going to have is this. In order to do this, I think I'm going to take off the bottom band around the waist, which is actually where the AB label is, and I'm kind of cautious to remove that. I'd rather not, but I might have to. It's kind of an interesting question actually, whether things like this should just be preserved in their state and not changed, or whether it's better to actually alter them if it means that they'll be used. I mean, this isn't something that would go in a museum or anything that would be kept in that sort of way. So I tend to think if it can't be used, what's the point really? It's better that it have some life, even if that means altering it. But I don't know, it's definitely something I think about. I mean, I'm obviously undoing the stitches here that maybe the original seamstress who made it must have put in. So I've taken out the gathers that were in the front, and actually I quite like it like this. I'm thinking I might actually put the gathers, not as many, but some back, but put them in the back of the top. These are my pea plants that I've been growing. I've had quite a few fresh peas off them already, and I read that if you want to keep them and dry them to eat as dried peas, you should let them dry on the plant. So I left these, I cut them off at the bottom about a week ago, and then I left them to dry in the sun. So now the plants and the pods are kind of crispy and the peas inside are dry. It actually feels kind of almost embarrassing how little food I've got this year compared to the amount of effort I've put in to growing things, which I don't know, I could be annoyed about, but I'm actually just really happy with everything that I've got and everything I've learned. It doesn't bother me that it's not a lot of food. Actually, if anything, it kind of is quite a nice reminder of how we don't value food enough. You know, just realizing how hard it is to grow a small amount of food and how lucky we are just to have access to such a range of foods and so much all the time, basically. My goal is obviously in the future to get better at this and to have better yields with the things I grow, but at the moment I'm just really excited to have anything because it all feels new and exciting.